to another episode of 50/50. I'm Christopher.
And I'm Charles.
Together, we're walking up and down the top 50 and bottom 50 movies of all time, according to IMDB, the Internet Movie Database.
Yes,
now,
we are.
In fairness, this is the top 50 and bottom 50 movies as of January 1st, 2010. We started this project a very long time ago, and we
made a lot of good progress.
Yeah, we've been slow but steady. About one episode a year. So we keep this going. I'll be about 80 when we finish up. So
That's right.
we're doing well. But in the interim, we've had things happen. We got married, we had kids. It's been crazy. Yeah. But now we're
not together though. Not together.
No. That would be a whole different plot twist. But no. So today, after all these years, we're coming back and we're picking up right where we left off. We did.
But I tell you what, we're not. We are not the Good, the Bad, and the Podcasts.
That's right.
Just to let you guys know.
That's right. We were the Good, Bad, and the Podcast, which is still a podcast.
Yes.
And Charles is still in that.
Yes. And it's confusing.
It is horribly confusing.
You are sometimes, though.
I don't know why you did that. Anyway,
you are sometimes in it, though. To be fair, it's not like you're not crossing over.
That's right. Just to keep things even more confusing, occasionally Charles and I both still do a podcast called The Good, Bad, and the Podcast that is not related to 50/50. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. Just go with it. This is 50/50.
The best and worst in IMDb.
That's right. Exactly.
Still not sponsored by IMDb. We never have been.
Not even close.
That's
but,
right.
Fingers crossed. But either way, we're picking up right where we left off. We had done the 50th through the 41st best and worst.
Yes.
And today we're picking up at number 40. And the 40th best movie of all time is Taxi Driver. And the 40th worst movie of all time,
The Hottie The Nottie.
Classic. And so
and also I want to say one other thing too, related to married, kids, and all that. I feel like I was listening to some of the old episodes, which, by the way, they're all live now. They haven't been active in years, because they were online at one point. I've taken them off, and there's even an episode that was never even edited before, never put out there. So it's a little special bonus episode. But I would say, on a personal level, I feel like I'm more mellow than I was then, and so when I was listening back and hearing some of my opinions, I don't agree with myself almost any of the times. And especially in relation to some of the bad movies and how I like them so much more than the good ones. I'm like, what was I thinking? But it is what it is, and it's history, and it's kind of like time travel experiment here. We just kind of.
Yeah, I think I can totally understand what you mean, because I think that I have several of those old episodes, or old movies rather, and I think in some ways my opinions may have mellowed and softened a little bit, and in some ways they may have entrenched even more, right? Like I might have dug in deeper to the position that I held previously. So
that's interesting. I don't find myself digging in deeper. In fact, I actually like Kubrick now. I've really grown to appreciate him, and especially The Shining. Because in our original one, we didn't. I don't think I like The Shining at all. But I still don't like A Clockwork Orange, and I still don't like Amelie, but I'm not as angry about it as I was in that episode. And Santa Claus is still awesome. I would say I agree with that's one of my favorite episodes. I was talking about Santa Claus, and then I also like Puma Man. That's another.
I have not gone back and rewatched those movies. There was no part of me that was like, I should give Puma Man a second chance. Like that never crossed my mind.
Whoa, that reminds me of something else too, actually, because that's because every time I think of Puma Man, I think of that clamshell VHS case, right? We had to watch it on a VCR.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we started this podcast, as crazy as it sounds, there wasn't really streaming.
That's right.
And so it was actually really hard to watch the movies, and for a lot of them, I was finding them on eBay, ordering them, and so Puma Man was on VHS, and I've still got it. And I probably do want to watch it again now that we're talking about it. Now, as far as Santa Claus, I've watched that a lot of times in between.
I think that may just be a Christmas tradition for you.
It is kind of. And there's a special edition Blu-ray that I want to get. I have not got it, so because apparently it has like the original like Spanish version, and it has the dubbed over version, and as we talked about before, they are slightly different.
That's special. Yeah, that's great. So I also think that there is part of me that at the time was just revolted by bad movies. And I think that I have maybe softened and mellowed a little bit more.
And I'm kind of the opposite. I loved the bad movies, and I loved. Yeah, well, I did. I just because it's you know, that's another thing too. Joe Bob Briggs is back. Joe Bob has The Last Drive-In on Shudder, and like I kind of grew up watching Joe Bob in the 80s and then in the Monster Vision in the 90s, and so he's back, and he gave me a sense of appreciation for these bad movies. He talked about them as if they were true art, which they're art. They just may not. I mean, some of them are terrible, but it's like what you talked about, your rule about, if a movie was attempted, because movies are hard to make, and if they finished it and all that, you give it at least a 3. You give it some credit. And then you proceeded to give a lot of movies 0s and 1s.
Yeah, I know. Well, some of them, I don't think they finished their movie. They just kind of released it.
I don't know. But either way, it's just kind of one of those like, okay, well, I guess.
Yeah.
But movies are hard to make, so.
Yes, and you're right. I think it is kind of an interesting time capsule to go back and listen to some of those and be like, oh, we had to find this VHS on eBay, or we had to go through Netflix and already had 2 DVDs out and had to wait for one to come back in.
Right,
like,
which is what happened with the Bad People.
Yeah. I'm like, DVDs from Netflix? Who in the world got it? It's a crazy
because streaming
thing.
wasn't a thing, and and so now it's just so much more convenient. I mean, like the Hottie and the Nottie for this one, it was free on one of the ones, Tubi or
Tubi. Yeah, I think it was Tubi. Yeah.
And then Taxi Driver's on Netflix. So it's just it's awesome. It's an interesting
it's
time we're living in. So I think this podcast will be better this time around. We'll be more prepared for it and get going, and it'll be different. Like, I mean, honestly, if it continues out, like you said, we're 80 by the time we finish it. Like, who knows what our opinions will be? What will we? I mean, it's just us changing too, right? We're just getting softer in our old age. But
it's going to be like 7 Up and 14 Up and 21 Up and all those documentary. But it also truly though, I think having it all streaming is going to allow us to be more consistent with getting the episodes out, because we're not going to be waiting months to get a VHS.
Right.
Anyway, all of that aside, let's move on to the movies, because we could chit chat about all this.
Okay, so we're starting with Taxi Driver. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll start with Taxi Driver.
Okay.
So the synopsis, for those of you who have not seen Taxi Driver, I guess we should say, which for some reason I don't feel like this was as big a thing when we did this the first time, but there will be spoilers on this podcast. If you have not seen Taxi Driver and you would like to see Taxi Driver fresh and not have any idea what's coming, just pause the podcast now, go take 2 hours, watch Taxi Driver, come back and listen. And if you want to watch Hottie and the Nottie and not have our opinions clouding your opinion, then...
And I would say you could also just watch Joker, and you'd be good on Taxi Driver too, if you prefer.
It's gonna be interesting, because I want to come back to that here in just a second. Okay. But either way, so spoilers, just spoiler alert for the whole podcast forever. So just be ready for that. Taxi Driver. For those of you who have not seen it, the summary, according to IMDb, a mentally unstable veteran works as a nighttime taxi driver in New York City, where the perceived decadence and sleaze fuels his urge for violent action by attempting to liberate a presidential campaign worker and an underage prostitute.
It's a long synopsis.
That's a long synopsis, and I also don't know that I completely agree with that being a synopsis of the movie, but either way, I understand that we have a trailer for the movie, though.
We do.
We have a trailer. So let's take a look at that.
Let's do that.
272. Second call, 414 Hamilton, 417. 195. Alfano, 448.
De Niro.
45.
In Bang the Drum Slowly, the critics called him a brilliant new talent. After Mean Streets, they said he was a genius. For his performance in The Godfather Part 2, they gave him the Academy Award.
Come on, man. Just get me out of here, all right?
Now, Robert De Niro creates a terrifying portrait of life on the edge of madness.
Tabby, just forget about this. It's nothing.
Taxi Driver, a film by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, people do anything in front of a taxi driver. I mean, anything. People too cheap to rent a hotel room.
Oh, driver, hurry up, will you?
People want to embarrass you. It's like you're not even there. It's like, like a taxi driver doesn't even exist. this city here is like an open sewer, you know? It's full of filth and scum.
I think I know what you mean, Travis. But it's not gonna be easy.
How do you guys get to be a Secret Service man? What? I was just curious, because I thought maybe I'd make a good one. Hey, what kind of guns do you guys carry? 38s, 45s, 357 Magnums, something bigger maybe? Hi. I'd like to volunteer.
Why?
Why? Because I think that you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
The taxi driver is looking for a target. Getting ready. Getting organized. Preparing himself for the only moment in his life that will ever mean anything.
How much for everything?
$350 for the Magnum, $250 for the 38, $1.25 for the 25, $150 for the 380.
That taxi driver's been staring at us.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
I don't know who's weirder, you or me.
You talking to me? Well, then who the hell else are you talking? Talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here.
I don't believe I've ever met anyone quite like you.
Oh, yeah?
You will never see a more chilling performance than this. Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver. Jodie Foster, Albert Brooks, Harvey Keitel, Leonard Harris, Peter Boyle, Sybil Shepherd, Taxi Driver.
So that's Taxi Driver. So I'll be honest, I haven't seen Joker yet. It when did that come out? That came out pretty like just at the end of 19, right? Joker, was that like a I was gonna say it came out before everything kicked off in the beginning of 2020 and went crazy. And I just didn't get a chance to see it. And then with everything going on, being in lockdown, quarantine, whatever, the idea of sitting down and watching Joker didn't really appeal to us at that point.
Interesting.
But yeah, so I just haven't seen Joker. So I can't make that comparison. But I enjoy this movie for its willingness to be just really painfully, brutally honest. Like its willingness to just like show you things and just say things. And it's just like, it's unapologetic. It just like, I was, we were talking about it and my wife and I were just chit-chatting about it. And I was like, there is no way you could make this movie again. And what I mean by that is, and maybe we were totally wrong with like Joker, but not just because of like a lot of the like racial slurs and things like that are in the movie, but also you couldn't make this movie. And again, maybe Joker did, and I just haven't seen it yet. And that's totally on me if that's the case. But what I felt like with this movie is there's no audience surrogate. Like there's no, like you're not watching this movie and feeling like for instance, if you think about any David Fincher movie, right? And David Fincher is really good at making dark, gritty movies, right? Every one of them, though, has at least one character that you as the audience, that kind of stands in for you as the audience, who just goes, this is crazy. What are we doing right now, right?
Yeah.
Like you have Morgan Freeman in Seven, and you have Edward Norton in Fight Club, and you have Daniel Craig in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, who are all kind of like looking at the situation like, this is messed up. What are we doing? And like, it's not that it takes away from what you're seeing being bad. It's just reassuring you as the audience that, yeah, this is bad and you're okay to feel that way because he does too, right? This movie doesn't have that. It's just you get in the head of this guy completely. And I think, and again, having not seen Joker, it's interesting that you mentioned that, but I feel like what makes this a little bit different is that there's no costume, there's no, I mean, I guess the shaved head, but that doesn't really feel like a costume.
Well, in the sense that in Joker, that you have more sympathy for him,
right?
That's this you don't have sympathy for Travis in this movie.
Well, you also, there's no suspension of disbelief necessary. Like you're watching Taxi Driver and you're like, oh, this is real. Like it's not like, oh, he's wearing makeup and he's dancing around. And
Yeah,
like,
but that's how Joker is, though. Like, it is real. It's a very realistic, gritty movie set in the same time period, in that same Gotham City is basically New York in the late 70s, 80s. And it's a build-up. I mean, so you're talking about him, shaving his head and getting ready. That's Joker plays out the same way. He's not even Joker till the last bit of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I can't make any comparisons to Joker. I probably shouldn't. But I guess what I was getting at more is that this just feels like I am literally watching a character who introduces himself at the beginning. He's a veteran, honorably discharged, and just he can't sleep, and clearly has PTSD of some kind. And,
yes.
He's still and clearly is still in the midst of what feels like a war zone when you're watching, New York in the 70s. It feels rough, right?
Yeah.
But you're watching this guy descend into madness, and you're just kind of marinating in it with him, and you're stewing it, and it has no qualms. Just, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to give you a reason. We're not going to make you feel good about it. This is just what's happening, and it's just oppressive. It's like being under a wet blanket. And by the end, it's just like, I mean, really, it just goes and goes and goes and goes. And even the sort of redemption, it's not really redemption. He still like wants to go kill people. And I don't know.
Well, so a couple things. You're talking about the redemption. I actually don't like the ending. And that's, the ending has always felt tacked on to me. It seems like this ultra super happy ending especially with the narration of Jodie Foster's dad, like talking, the letter being read. It just seems like way too happy, and he's back to normal, and he's kind of a little hero. They actually, they treat him like he's a good guy, and
right.
And so to me, it always felt like, I wonder if they chickened out. Like, I wonder if there was a much more gritty, dark ending. And on top of that, the fact that we're celebrating him is kind of interesting choice, right? I mean, it's like, is he right? I don't know. It just, that feels kind of wrong to me. It's almost like a Clockwork Orange kind of thing. I didn't like that either. Yeah. And also, there's the part where he's talking on the telephone, trying to win back Sybil Shepherd. And the camera moves off away from him. It just faces down the hall. And, in any other movie, you would expect something to happen. Someone's going to come through the door. But it just sits there. It's literally moved away from this conversation as if it's embarrassed of him having to grovel and beg. It's like, we're done with that. Yeah. So it's clearly, to me, it's like we're a detached viewer, but it's interesting what the movements and the choices Scorsese made,
Well, and it's interesting too that you mentioned the whole ending, because I feel like the ending would have been almost stronger if you had the whole narration with the dad and shown all the newspaper clippings and everything, and then just cut and just not shown him, hair grown back. He's got a scar on his neck with the other cabbies, and like just take that entire scene out completely. Well, and just have it in that way.
And there's also the whole thing with the Sybil. Well, then the Sybil Shepherd gets in his cab, and it's clear she would take him back, and he gets to reject her this time. And it's like, it feels like this like ultimate male fantasy thing that we get tapped into a little bit, right?
But it does. I can see that, but I do also wonder if, and this may be giving. So I'm not sure, right? So I think there's two possibilities, right? The first possibility is, like you were saying, they chickened out, and the only way that anybody's going to pay for this movie is we have to put some sort of a positive spin at the end of this movie, or we can't make it, right?
Right.
Or the other one, which is, how disgusting and gross is it that we as a society elevate these kind of people, right? Like, and so like, is that what he's going for? That like, it may be horrible, the stuff he's seeing on the streets every day, but this dude literally just went in and like gunned down 3 people and tried to kill a presidential candidate, but he's a hero because whatever, right? And so,
and don't forget the person he shot in the whatever.
Oh yeah, that's right, the bodega thing. Yeah, he just straight murdered him and then dropped the gun and ran. I mean, like, it's crazy, but
that's why I think it's relevant in a lot of ways, because you've got, not to get political about anything, but us with like our gun violence and all that, and he's able to get all these guns and illegally and unregistered. He even says in that thing, he's like, I can't be found here. It's not registered. I don't have a permit for it. Like
right.
It's just interesting. A lot of this stuff works, and maybe that's why Todd Phillips did the Joker the way he did, because he realized it was relevant to today's times.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the themes of the movie hold up really well. I think that the performances hold up great. To be honest, I don't think there's anybody. It's weird to see Marlon the fish as a campaign worker, but
I love Albert Brooks anyway.
Oh, he's great. Yeah. But it was just so funny because we had literally just watched those movies, and it was like, oh yeah, that's really like throwing me here for a second. And getting to Martin Scorsese drops the N-word in the middle of the cat, which is always fun. His sequence
was pretty awkward. That was, it was a really interesting sequence, but it's like, I don't know. It was like, man, is that, and I wonder is because he comes out, Robert De Niro's character, that scene just kind of stops, and he comes out and he's got all this money, so it's implied that he sat there a long time, and maybe Scorsese went up to kill the wife or not. We don't know, because that's essentially what happens. Scorsese's a passenger in the cab, and he has him stop in front of this thing and looks up at a window, and he's like, "That's my wife, but that's not my house," and so like you wonder like what happened. They leave a lot of suspense, but also was that the turning point? Was that the point where he was like, I just got paid money for this. I also got paid money when the pimp Harvey Keitel was pulling Jodie Foster out of the cab. He's getting money from all these people that are doing disgusting things.
Right.
And I wonder if those were the kind of moments that spurred him on,
I think it's interesting because he kind of like, he becomes what he doesn't like, right?
Yeah.
Like, for instance, when Scorsese gets in the cab, he's talking about a 44 Magnum, which is the exact gun that Travis Bickle goes and seeks out, right? And so he's trying to become that thing, right? And he is the guy throwing around cash, just like the pimp throwing around the cash, right?
Yeah.
So like it kind of, he is the thing that he hates, he is becoming, and he's justifying it to himself by, I'm going to be the one to fix it and change it. But in the end, he's just another piece of the filth in the streets, right? And it's kind of just...
And again, it depends on what they were intending to do, because it's kind of... I guess you could take it really any way. That's...
Yeah, and it really is just a very... It's a bleak movie. It's a bleak movie, but it's also really... I think you're right. I think the way that it holds up, the themes and stuff that, as much as we say you could never make it again because it's such a product of its time, or what, 77, so whatever, it's like 40 years ago or whatever, but it's like literally all that same stuff that we're still talking about now.
Yeah.
I mean, just all the same stuff.
Well, and the trailer makes it's funny because if in the trailer the narrator makes it seem like it's a horror film almost. He's like, it's like, you've never seen a more chilling performance, and they make it almost seem like Psycho kind of thing, whereas the movie itself doesn't play out that way. The movie he's creepy and weird and not all there, but the movie makes, I don't know, it's more dramatic.
I think it would have felt that way if you had started an hour in, but because he starts off as this clean-cut, honorably discharged guy who I just want to work long hours. Like, he's just a guy at the beginning, right?
Well, and they almost make it seem at the beginning it's the taxi's going real slow and there's all that fog and stuff off the street. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know if you noticed this, but when he goes in to apply to be a cab, that when he opens the door, all that fog rolls in with him. And I've always wondered, like, what is the symbolism there? Is it almost like a dream? Did any of this really happen?
Well, it feels the more I was watching it, between the score with the saxophone, the narration, it feels like we're watching a classic noir, but with a really bad anti-hero kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
So it just feels like a noir film.
Speaking of that score, though, I don't know if you know this, but I'm blanking on his name, but he's the same guy that did a lot of Hitchcock's movies. He did Psycho.
Bernard Herrmann, yeah.
Right, and I read that he like literally died a couple hours after he did his final thing for this movie. So he didn't even get to see it. He finished the music and then he was dead that night, or whatever, or the next day. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. But it is a very interesting kind of jazzy. You're right. It would fit right in with the noirs.
Yeah, well, imagine like Double Indemnity, right? Like this just feels like that, but like in a really like it's like the mirror image of a noir, right?
Would you consider this a neo-noir on any level?
I think it's too complicated to do that. Like if he was actually trying to solve like like if Jodie Foster had said, "I need your help, mister," and then he felt like he had to go save her because she was asking for his help.
Yeah.
Then she would have been like the femme fatale who's like trying to, it would have, yes, in that case it would have.
But she's almost kind of like an inverted femme fatale because she.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. This is like a bizarro noir.
It is.
But I think there's too much else going on for it to simply be that. I think it's more complicated than that. But I did, we probably should wrap up the movie on this one and move on to Hottie and the Nottie. But I did.
How many times are you going to say that?
I know, right? The one last anecdote I want to wrap up on this one is I remember, I don't know, did you ever read the book Easy Riders and Raging Bulls? If you didn't read that book, you should absolutely read that book.
I've never even heard of it.
Great. It's a history of Hollywood from literally like the production of Easy Rider to the production of Raging Bull. So like late 60s to the 80s, right? So it's that period where everything is moving from the Hollywood system to kind of the counterculture thing. And they talk about Paul Schrader, as he's writing Taxi Driver, literally writing it with a bottle of whiskey and a 45 on the desk next to the typewriter. And that's how he wrote the movie. And you're like, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, you're drunk, you're angry, and you're kind of off on edge, and you may not finish this script, right? And it's just like, I don't know, like that visual for me the whole time. I'm like, yep, you were drunk when you wrote that, but boy, you were really honest when you wrote it.
Yeah, so it is. Raw is a good way to do it.
Yeah. So anyway, so what would you give Taxi Driver? Because clearly you enjoyed it.
I did. I would say an 8.
An 8?
Mm-hmm.
I think probably an 8 is probably fair. I part of me wants to go higher because I feel like the themes of it are so ever present with us, whether it's PTSD from veterans or gun violence or crime or
race relations
or, corrupt politicians who are out to serve themselves and not the people, or, I mean, like all of this stuff, like just doesn't, I mean, literally we're still dealing with the exact same things. I think the only reason I don't give it higher marks is it also feels kind of dated for its artistic style too. Like
some of it though, but not all of it. I'm surprised.
Not all of it, yeah. But it's certainly not like a Citizen Kane where you watch it and you're like, this was made when? Like this movie, you're like, oh yeah, this was made in the 70s. Like you can just see
right. And I mean, even though like the film stock of the way it was shot, it's a really gritty, like, but again, that's how Joker is. Like even the colors and all that are very similar. So
yeah, no, I would give it a solid 8, maybe an 8.5. So yeah, no, for sure. Look, we agreed on a movie.
Yeah,
what has happened to us?
Right out of the gate.
This podcast can be terrible. All we do is agree. This is awful. Okay. Let's move on to a movie that surely we're going to disagree upon.
Okay.
Let's move on to the Hottie and the Nottie.
I don't know if we're going to disagree. Who knows?
All right. I'll let you read the synopsis. Let us know what's going on here.
All right. So this is, if you guys didn't know, this is a Paris Hilton movie from 2008. Synopsis is a woman agrees to go on a date with a man only if he finds a suitor for her unattractive best friend. Yes, and here's the trailer.
Class, we have a new student today.
You never forget your first love.
Her name is Christabel.
Just ask Nate Cooper. 20 years later.
Aren't you Christabel Abbott? I think we went to school together.
Nate Cooper.
He's getting a second chance.
So what is it that you do these days?
I am a personal trainer.
You should check out my gym. My roommate and I are going there this afternoon for yoga. You want to come?
Yeah.
But the only way to get her...
Hey, Cooper.
...is to get past...
You remember June?
Her.
Yes, who could forget June?
It's a very well-known law of physics. The hotness of one girl is directly proportional to the ugliness of her best friend.
I've made a promise to myself that I'm not going to date anyone again until June has someone special in her life.
That could be a very long time.
She's like some hideous dragon guarding the princess.
I got a plan. I
Like I said, as long as she's female. Oh my God, it has whiskers. And no teeth.
She has teeth. They're just not the conventional shade.
Let's go get some sun.
Good news! I just lost my toenail.
Regent Releasing presents.
I have found the perfect guy for her.
Cheers. You have unbelievable dome structure. Have you ever done any modeling?
He's just buttering up the freak to get to Christabel. This is your competition, my man. You are so screwed.
I love this song.
He stole my mojo.
Ooh, that was hard.
Johan happens to be the devil.
Excuse me, sorry.
Open your heart.
Ever since the first grade, I thought that you were the girl that I was meant to be with.
Oh.
And close your eyes.
Sorry.
Nice. June and I don't get much action, so we take what we can get.
Paris Hilton, Joel David Moore, Christine Lakin, the Hottie and the Nottie.
If you give up on your dream, you die.
Are you quoting me Flashdance?
All right, so that's the Hottie and the Nottie. So, Charles, what'd you think of the Hottie and the Nottie?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest. I'm mixed about this movie because I didn't hate it.
Okay.
It's not a good movie. I would definitely say that, and I never like it when an actor or an actress almost makes like a vanity project, because I just don't like this whole thing is like it's predicated on the fact that you think Paris Hilton is the most perfect woman ever made.
Right.
And because if you don't, then this is nothing in this movie for you.
Yeah.
But and she's the worst part of the movie, by the way, I would say, for me.
Absolutely.
But then again, there were parts that I actually laughed at. There were parts I thought were funny in a weird way, and it was cracking me up. So the plot, is it kind of reminds me of like She's All That, which is to say that the whole thing is kind of offensive, because it's like an ugly person's not going to get love until she starts being really pretty and attractive, and then all of a sudden he wants to be with her, kind of thing. But again, She's All That does the exact same thing, and it's even worse in that movie because she just like takes off her glasses and suddenly she's. But in this movie they overdo it. They do make her like as unattractive as they possibly can, and she slowly becomes normal. But they don't really explain all the steps in the, she got her teeth fixed. It's like, well, no, there was a lot more problems going on than just her teeth. But on top of that, she doesn't have a good personality. She's not nice. And you could argue, well, it's because everybody's always been mean to her. But like, what redeeming qualities does she have that he's fallen in love with? Like, it's I don't know.
Yeah, it would have. So I agree with you. I did not hate this movie.
I expected to, though.
I did too, and I did not like. Don't get me wrong, I did not love this movie either, right? But I think you're right. If it had been something where the whole time he's chasing this other girl, he had been like forming some deep bond with this unattractive girl, who then one day walks in and she's beautiful, and he's realized he's been falling in love with her this whole time. It'd be like, oh, I get it. That's the trope. That's the thing. That's what you do. But that's just not what happened. It's like he had like 2 conversations with her, whatever, and then she shows up and she's attractive, and he's like, "Oh, I'm in love with you," and you're like, "What? Where did this come from?" Like,
on some level, it reminded me of Something About Mary, especially the way it starts out, where he's like stalking her and has a friend, like and I don't know. There's a lot of things about it that reminded me of that. So I wondered, it's so like basically it's kind of like She's All That meets Something About Mary meets some crap with Paris Hilton.
I think really, so I agree with you in that this movie is really not that bad, and Paris Hilton really is by far the worst part in it. It's not a great script. It obviously needed some work. It's not a great story, whatever, right? Like, it's cheesy and corny and all this stuff. But if you take, I think the only reason this movie is on our list is because Paris Hilton's in it, and everybody loves to hate that girl. Like, the tagline for House of Wax was "Watch Paris Die." Like, everyone hated her, and so like,
well,
I think...
and actually to that point, we forgot to mention this on Taxi Driver, but this list, the IMDb list has changed a lot since we started.
Oh,
we
yeah,
had to freeze frame it. So,
yeah.
So this movie was number 40 on our list when we started. That's where we're at. But today it's number 7. There's more hate for Paris Hilton. How does it move up that much?
I think. Well, imagine if you were somebody who was not around when Paris Hilton was literally on everything. You would be thinking like, why does this exist? This is so bad. But I don't know. Maybe that's
and what if we were starting this today? What would be number 40 would be Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, which we have talked about on The Good, the Bad, and the Podcast, which is confusing because that's another podcast, not this one. But we have talked about it in a special episode on that podcast.
Well, and with Taxi Driver, right? The number 40 movie of all time is Clockwork Orange. Is not Clockwork Orange. Is Psycho. And Taxi Driver today is ranked 107. So it dropped way off.
Taxi Driver fell off the top 50, but Hottie the Nottie went into the bottom 10?
But I'll do you one better. Give me 1 second, because there was one other thing that I passed when I was finding that. Joker is at 56. So people still like that story. They like that theme. They just want the new version of it.
I guess so. That's... Wow.
Anyway,
Wow.
Anyway, Hottie and the Nottie, I really think the only reason it's on this list and the only reason it's getting all this grief is because of Paris Hilton. It is a bad movie by every stretch, but it is not the 7th worst movie of all time. Right?
I don't think it's the 40th worst movie of all time, to be honest.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think it's going to be the top 50. I really kind of wish it wasn't on our list, but I don't know where I'd put it. But oh, you still there?
Anything like that, but it's not like offensive to watch, right?
Right.
It's bad, but it's no worse than anything else you would see on it is of the same quality of like a Disney Channel original movie. Obviously it's, raunchier than that. So maybe like a Freeform original movie.
But it's not really that raunchy. It's a PG-13 movie. It's surprisingly, with Paris Hilton in the lead, there's not really... It really is along the lines of She's All That. It's more in that style.
Well, yeah, but you have Paris Hilton in it. You don't need the movie to be raunchy. Everybody's already seen her homemade videos, so like no one's like.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying she has that reputation, right? Right. Because of that, and yet this is a very I would almost call this squeaky clean. It's not quite, yeah. But there's not even like language or anything really that I can think
why
of.
did it get? I guess just innuendo. Is that what gave it a PG-13?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, there is. I don't know. I mean, I guess because even there's not really a sex scene. Even the one sex scene leading up to it, he decides not to have sex with Paris Hilton. So
yeah. I don't know. I don't think this was a terrible movie. I think if you took Paris Hilton out of it entirely, right?
Yeah.
And just put a no-name.
Right.
Above average attractive woman in there, and then do just like a brief once over of that script just to clean it up a little bit, you would have probably a decent movie.
Well, I like the lead. The lead guy was okay.
Well, so this is what I was going to mention. His name is Joel David Moore.
Yeah.
I could not place what he was in. My wife, Leslie, was like, oh yeah, that's the guy he was in Dodgeball. And I'm like, that's not, I mean, I like Dodgeball, but that's not what I'm remembering from. He was in Avatar, which is the 26th best movie on our list. So this guy is going to be in a worst movie and a best movie. That guy's like, he is, I don't know how he's pulling that off. He is like the nexus of our thing.
Is Avatar still on the top? If we started now,
I don't know. I'll have to check and see if it's still on there, but it was on there when we pulled the list.
Now, what's crazy is there's still no sequel to Avatar, even though it was on our list at the beginning. And there's supposed to be 4 sequels coming out at the same time.
Well, I think
he's making them simultaneously.
I cannot remember the actress's name, but she was in Guardians of the Galaxy, and apparently, contractually, she was she plays Gamora in
Zoe Saldana.
Yeah, she's in Avatar, right? But she couldn't do
both,
because she was contracted to Guardians. And so, she had to finish out that contract before she could go back to Avatar. and finish out those movies.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't even know where James Cameron's been filming that seriously for like 10 years.
I don't think he's even started filming it, has he? I thought they were still just in pre-production, like scripting and planning, because they couldn't get her over there to film it.
I don't even know, but I know they're doing, like I said, they're like simultaneously making like several sequels to it.
Yeah,
like I think it's like 4 or 5 or something, some crazy number.
What? I thought it was just like 2. I thought it was just gonna be a trilogy.
I don't think so. I think he's filming a lot of them. Like I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, who knows? But the point is, like, the fact that movie still doesn't have a sequel, they're still working on it all these years later.
So I am scrolling through this list. I am already down to 160, 170, and I have yet to see Avatar. So apparently Avatar dropped off everybody's favorites
which
list.
kind of makes sense, because at the time it was the #1 movie of all time. It was really popular because of the effects and whatnot, but it wasn't that great of a story. And if the effects, they probably don't. I haven't watched it in a long time, so I don't know how the effects hold up. But
it holds up better than you would think.
Okay.
I was actually pretty surprised at how well it holds up. But I think the problem is that it's 3 hours long. I can't believe we're doing an Avatar talk right now, but it's 3 hours long. And also the story's not bad. The story's just not original.
But Endgame is the movie that knocked it off, and that's 3 hours long too. So
that's true. But anyway, the point being,
isn't it Endgame, Avatar, and Titanic? Aren't those like the #1 movies of all time, box office wise?
Yeah,
like
that's true. Yeah. But either way, all of this to say, Joel David Moore has the acting breadth and range to be in the 40th worst movie of all time and the 26th best movie of all time. That's got to say something. Plus, he was in Dodgeball, so he's doing okay.
And back to Avatar. What's the main guy's name?
I'm trying to get away from Avatar.
I know. He keep pulling you back in. What's the main guy's name in Avatar?
I can't remember his name,
because I feel like he's in Worthington. Sam Worthington, is that it?
Yeah, that's it. That's him.
I feel like he's kind of fallen off the map. He hasn't really been in anything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he didn't. Yeah, he
like
he did that.
If you asked me back then, I would have said, "Oh, he's an up and coming actor. He's been in a lot of stuff," but I haven't really seen him much. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I would. He did a Netflix series on the Unabomber. That was actually really good.
Really?
Yeah, it was actually very good. I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't like astounding or anything, but it was good. But I agree. Like, I feel like he just kind of disappeared. I don't know if he was smart enough to say, I'll be in a James Cameron movie, but I want points on this. I don't want scale. And he got paid points off the biggest movie
and
of all time.
I'm assuming he's back for Avatar. So that's,
yeah, but I'm just saying, why work if you don't have to?
Well,
right?
That's true too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's my opinion anyway.
That's a good motto here. Why work?
So anyway, Hottie and the Nottie.
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this movie?
A 4.
A 4. I was gonna say between a 4 and a 5, somewhere in that range feels right to me. Because again, I feel like it's hated on because Paris Hilton's in it.
Yes.
And she's the weakest part of the movie, but I don't feel like she doesn't just completely torpedo the movie. I mean, I don't know. We have absolutely no question watched much worse movies in the process of recording this podcast. And so I'm hesitant to go much lower than that.
Maybe it's like we're doing the Benjamin Button thing where we're starting at opposite.
In the middle?
Yeah, we're starting opposite ages here. We're meeting in the middle, and this is because we just gave it the same score for both movies.
Our podcast is doomed. If we agree on everything, this isn't going to be fun anymore. We have to argue
because we didn't trash the movie. Like I said, I'm more mellow now. I feel like before I'd have been Taxi Driver is the worst movie ever made, and Hottie the Nottie is a 9. It's like.
Maybe we're just becoming more reasonable. Maybe that's a problem. We're not opinionated anymore.
It's I can see that from that perspective. Yes, that's right.
No, you're right. I
totally agree with you on that.
And we're done. We're never gonna make it. We've only got 39 more to do, so no worries. We'll
plus all the half ones where we talk about our picks.
What are we doing? Yeah. So that's I think that's a podcast. I think we've pretty much got those two covered, and
it's all about us.
I think though, really truly, it's possible. It's totally possible that these two movies aren't going to create a lot of friction because they're kind of indisputable, right? Like Taxi Driver is actually just a good movie.
Yes.
And it's something that I think maybe you didn't like it 10 years ago, but I feel like it was something that was just like, that's just a good movie. And everybody kind of likes that movie. And then Hottie and the Nottie is kind of an inoffensively bad movie. Like,
right.
It's not like just garbage.
It's not Santa Claus.
Yeah, exactly. Which you love that trash, and I hate it. And so I think we need to wait until we get a really crappy movie and a really great movie, because you won't like the great movie. So we're just gonna have.
We don't know that. You don't know that. I mean, it's a whole new game, right? I mean, but I'm trying to look up on the list here. Like, what are the next movies? Okay, so we got. Let's see. So we're gonna 39. 39 worst movie is The Creeping Terror from 1964.
That's the sloths, isn't it? Is that the
no,
sloths?
This is like the big carpet monster. It's and then what's the good one here? 39 is Forrest Gump from 94.
Forrest Gump and Creeping Terror.
I think
a match made in heaven.
I think that's right. I think I said that. Yeah, let's see.
Forrest Gump will be
Creeping Terror. What? I watched that with Micah a long time ago when I thought we were actually going to record that episode 10 years ago or whatever. That's another one.
Rewatch that one. You may want to.
That's so you haven't seen it yet?
I haven't seen Creeping Terror.
I have it on VHS. I think I might have to mail you that one. I don't know if you'll be able to find it. It's a movie.
There are 58 different streaming services at my fingertips. We will figure something out.
I do know that one of them coming up. I don't know which one it is though. It's it's on the bad list. It's the Tony Blair Witch Project for 37. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to be able to get that one. So we'll have to figure out. Maybe we'll do for that episode. We'll do the current 37th movie if it's not elsewhere on our list.
Yeah,
because
that's fair.
I tried to find that movie and I could not. Like I was even like asking people on IMDb, and there was a guy that claimed to be the director, and he was like saying he was never going to release it because he was so ashamed of it. I don't know if he really was, but
that's so funny because that movie is like even just the title of that movie dates how long we've been doing this. It's Tony Blair for starters, right?
Yeah.
Tony Blair, right? And then Blair Witch, it's a knockoff on the Blair Witch Project, which is like even older than that. And it's, what are we doing? Like, this is ridiculous. All right, well, we'll figure it out.
I feel like we're going to say that a lot.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting too to watch Forrest Gump, because I think kind of similar to Taxi Driver, you're dealing with a lot of these same concepts and issues.
Well, to an extent, although that movie, Forrest Gump, I don't know. I've read a lot of articles about it. People think it has not aged well. So I'll rewatch it because I haven't seen it in a long time.
Who knows? I just meant that like everybody's talking about our current time being analogous to the 60s.
Yeah.
And so it'd be interesting to see kind of, and you're right. Look, I'm not Forrest Gump.
You did the deep voice on that look.
I'm sorry. Forrest Gump is not by any means like gritty realism, right? Like if it's anything, it is like a Disney version of American history. So I have no doubt that we will watch this and be like, oh, this is so like glossed over that it's
whitewashed.
Kind of yeah. So it may be, but we'll see. We'll see what's going on, and I think we'll talk about it when it comes up. But so next week or next time, next month.
So we'll actually. What do you mean next
month?
Who
knows?
No. So okay, so here's how we're going to be doing. From kind of hopefully for the next while at least. The Good, the Bad, and the Podcast will have one episode. Again, that's confusing, I know, but the current Good, the Bad, and the Podcast will have one episode each month, and usually at the first of the month. And this podcast, 50/50, will alternate. This will be every other month, because in the months between when we're not on, we're going to be doing some here and there stuff. In fact, Topher and I, we're not going to announce it just yet, but we will have an upcoming here and there series. But before we do, Micah and his wife Laura will actually do a here and there series, because next month in July, Mark and Kelly are finishing up their... it's like part 15, I think they're at, of James Bond. They've been doing all the James Bond books, and it's kind of funny because there are some long gaps for them too. There's like a year or two gap between some of their episodes, and so they're gonna be finishing that up next month in July, and then Topher and I will be back in August for the Creeping Terror.
How many of those James Bond movies had books associated with them? Like, I mean, how many?
Well, as far as I know, pretty much up to the Pierce Brosnan stuff.
Right. So like GoldenEye, no, but
no,
like
yeah. So like
through Roger Moore.
Through Roger Moore, I don't know if License to Kill did or not, but the Living Daylights did, because they just did the last episode they did was the Living Daylights, and they talked about that, and I believe it was a short story. And actually, this next episode coming up in July, I think they're kind of doing the orphan movies. They're doing all the ones that don't have a book associated with them, and we're going to talk about all of them. But it's all the Pierce Brosnan movies, and pretty much that's it. Because the Daniel Craig, like Casino Royale was, and some of the other ones at least used some of the same plots. They talked about that. I don't know what we're going to get into, because I haven't read the book, so they're the ones that do that. So that's but they'll be talking about that next time, and
it'll be no idea there were that many books. I thought there was only like a handful that they just like ran with. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, but again, a lot of them are short stories too. So like the Living Daylights was, and one of the ones in it was I don't know. A lot of it some of it like directly inspired the Daniel Craig ones, even if they're not tied to the plot. In interesting ways, like some of the characters and stuff they brought out. So they've really kind of done some interesting things with that series. Which, by the way, this is Daniel Craig's movie. Is it A Time to Kill? What's the Time to Die? I think is what it's called. That one comes out in November. No Time to Die. I'm mixing it up with the Samuel L. Jackson movie. Yes, they deserve to die.
Time to Kill. Yeah. Another movie that's gonna feel weirdly dated if you ever rewatch that one.
Is that on our list?
I have no idea, but that one will feel very bizarre right now.
But anyway, so that movie comes out in November. It was originally going to come out in April, and it got delayed. So that's one of the big ones. So, but it's Daniel Craig's last time
to release a Bond movie. Those are always Christmas movies, anyway,
right? I don't know why it wasn't November. November, Christmas. Anyway, but
yeah. Anyway, well, guys, this has been a long drawn out, but I think it's just we got to get caught up. A lot of kind of
you say
housekeeping. What?
Oh, it sounded like you said we got to get cat called out.
Well, we got to get caught up. Get caught up. We had a lot of housekeeping to kind of go over here, but now that we're into it and we're in that swing, I think it's going to be good going forward. We've got some really great and some really awful movies coming up, so you'll want to stick around to hear those. And we have the list posted somewhere, right? Do we still have that? We had that posted.
It was at one point. I'll probably need to recreate it, because I actually don't know where it's at. It's probably buried somewhere on the website.
I say we should get that up so people want to watch along. That'd be good. We can work on getting that up. So
sure.
Yeah. So anyway, for 50/50, I'm Christopher.
And I'm Charles. And if you want to find this, you can let's see. We actually have an outro, because Mark and I always talk about this. We have let's see. What is our official outro?
We have an official outro.
Well, it's just we always talk about this, and
boy, things have changed.
Yeah.
So amazing.
So here we go. So you can watch us live on Facebook or listen to the replay on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and YouTube by searching 50/50 and IMDB. And of course, you can find all of our podcasts on itsjustawesome.com. But whatever your preferred method, be sure to subscribe and like us. So that's a little plug for everything, but yes, we don't know how you guys are listening currently, but hopefully.
There you go.
Hopefully you're listening. That's the whole point.
Yeah, exactly.
We do a live podcast, so we'll try. Like I said, we'll try to have one every other week. Is kind of the goal here.
Awesome.
.com.
Very good.
And scene. Anyway, we'll see you guys later. Have a good one.